First in this motion, I call the member for Balmain.
Thank you very much, Madam Temporary Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wanted to first of all acknowledge the member for Drummoyne for bringing this motion forward, because it is clear that there is a great deal of support for the fact that the government has abolished Part 3A, but of course there is still a lot more work to be done, because as the member for Heffron outlined, the EPNA Act, which was a very innovative, very forward-thinking piece of legislation, has been systematically dismantled over the years. The former Labor government ripped the EPNA Act apart in order to ensure that, in their minds, development could proceed, but in fact all it led to was development paralysis, the community losing confidence in not only members of parliament but also in the system, the process of planning approvals here in New South Wales. And when it came to developer donations, there was a strong perception that you bought the result that you wanted. And we saw the development industry and government working lockstep, delivering inappropriate development, in many situations development which in the long run didn't serve the community, the environment or the economy. I wanted to just mention two areas very briefly. I won't go through in the remaining few minutes I have what our concerns about the Green Paper are. They're significant. In particular, the fact that many of the recommendations from the more dire inquiry were not reflected in the Green Paper. In particular, one of the recommendations, recommendation 6, that talks about ecological sustainability, that being the priority approach that needs to be taken in terms of how these things are managed. But of course that doesn't come through in any clear way in the paper. There's a whole range in the Green Paper. There's a whole range of recommendations which in our view need more emphasis in the Green Paper, and of course we'll be working to ensure that the government does their best to support this. Just two brief points, one on IHAPS. I don't think anyone has any opposition to IHAPS, but the point is that accountability rests with the elected representative. When you stand or you fall on that capacity to be an elected representative, if councils want to develop IHAPS, I encourage that and recommend it, and think that it can be positive in many situations. But if councils do want to retain the right to be able to examine particular development applications, I believe it should be their democratic right, because they, unlike bureaucrats, can get kicked out and people know that they are accountable. I wanted to mention one other thing about private certification. Private certification is a shambles. It's an absolute disgrace, and I draw people's attention to a recent decision of the Building Professionals Board, and if the Minister wants to do something, he should put the boot into that board, because in my last 1 minute I'll outline to you, Leichhardt Council contacted a certifier to ask whether or not something complied. Did it comply or not? Would it be certified? And the certifier responded that it, quote, appeared to be in compliance based on the information. Appeared to be? And get a ruler and measure it. Appeared to be. So a complaint was made to the Building Certifiers Board to say, well, is appeared to be in compliance sufficient? And you know what the Building Professionals Board said? Yeah, that's okay. Complaint dismissed. So when you're having something built next to you, all the certifier has to say, well, it appears to comply, and according to the Building Professional Board, that's good enough. Labor privatised that process. Councils used to run that process of certification. I believe it is something that the government needs to seriously consider, because the truth is the Building Professionals Board isn't a sufficient deterrent. It's a hopeless way to try and certify a range of private certifiers who, quite frankly, don't even respond a lot of the time to residents or councils. So those powers need to be addressed. So, Madam Temporary Speaker, it's clear that development has been humiliated in terms of a professional, independent process by the former government. This government needs to do more. In particular, Part 3, there was a development in my area which we believe should have gone back to the community, as the Premier said. So I want to conclude by saying that the Premier's words that development should be brought back to the community is something that needs to be agreed to and actually implemented by this government for the benefit of all.